Hello there. Welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, great to have you. Another really powerful conversation that will help you live a life that's strong by design. It's why we do the show, to have conversations with people from all different backgrounds, different walks of life, who have been through some things, have some lessons to share that can hopefully lead you down the narrow path that we all should try to travel along. And the podcast that we have here is a very special thing for me personally and for our team. As you know, if you've been listening to the show in recent months or over the last couple of years, we've had several different hosts on the show, and that's on purpose. I do get the opportunity to host a majority of the episodes, but we have Mike, the founder of the company, who gets to host. We have Jared, who's kind of our in-house pastor. He's one of our lead videographers and just a wonderful man. And he did the last couple of episodes with some of our guests. And so we just all get to take part in the show and enjoy it and have meaningful conversations that can hopefully, move the needle in your life and help you to live that life stronger by design. Okay, so if you could do one thing for me at some point, probably at the end of the conversation today, if you could think of someone to share this conversation with that could help them, a friend or a family member, just get that person in your mind as we get kind of into this conversation and share it with them if you would, because that really helps our show organically reach more people and touch more lives. And I know when I hear a good podcast, I want to share it right away with a friend or my wife or somebody, because it made an impact in my life. And like when you read a good book and you want to kind of tell everybody about it. So do the same. And I thank you in advance for that. So our guest today, the one and only Mr. Patric Young. I've just met this man myself, but I did a little bit of homework. And as you know, we've had our good friend Frank Rich on the podcast many times over the last several years. And he's a real close friend of ours and one of our coaches on our YouTube channel. And he recently did a podcast with Patric that I listened to get to know our guests a little bit better. And it was a wonderful conversation. So if you want to, go check out the Superhuman Life podcast with Frank Rich, and you can listen to their conversation or listen to Frank's podcast. I've never really promoted it that much on the show, but it's a wonderful podcast. It's helping men all around the world break the addiction and overcome obstacles and challenges in their lives. And it's just great. So our guest is a former professional American basketball player. He's currently an ESPN college basketball analyst, which is always really cool. He was born and raised right here in Florida. We're based here in Clearwater, Florida. He was raised in Jacksonville, Florida. So he is a true Floridian, which there aren't many of those. There's some, but that's great. He's recognized as a McDonald's All-American basketball player at UF, at the University of Florida. And in his 4-year college career at Florida, he became the 50th 1,000-point scorer in UF history, finished his career 27th on the all-time scoring list, 1,307 points. He became the 11th Gator all-time with 1,300 points and 800 rebounds. He never missed a game. I always marvel at men like you, Patric. He's a true warrior. He never missed a game in his college career. And he became the second player in Florida program history to appear in 150 games. And I can thank Wikipedia for some of that great information there. Hopefully it's accurate. He was awarded several honors while playing basketball at UF, including SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year from 2012 to 2014. He went on to play professional basketball briefly in the NBA and then in Europe from 2014 to 2020. And then he started his career in broadcasting in 2021 and is a studio host for the SEC Network's college basketball coverage at ESPN. So that's pretty awesome because that's something that I had desired to do while I was in college and pursuing communications and think, how much I love sports. I'm like, wow, this would be amazing to be able to get on with ESPN. So Patric's gets to live out some of my dreams, which is pretty great. Something happened, though, last year in June. He was in a tragic car accident, and it left him paralyzed from the waist down. So this is relatively new. This is only something he's been dealing with for the last 8 months or so. And since then, he's gone on to start a foundation. And we're going to get to know a little bit more about his foundation and the lives that he's touching and what he's looking to accomplish with it. So, Patric, first of all, thank you so much for being on our show. Tremendous honor to have you, sir.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for having me. And it's these last eight months have been such a blur, and there's been so much that has just transpired. Thinking about my basketball life, it just seems like a completely different life, completely different person. But I'm just so grateful and thankful for the journey. Thankful for sports. Sports are the most important, yet least important part of our society. It's a place where you get to play a game that gives you an opportunity to practice bravery, courage, sacrifice, hard work. And for the most part, no one dies. Nothing's really at stake in those games. And I think my athletic background helped me so much with handling real life adversity, and the men that have and women that have helped me to just mold me through all those experiences I had, the highs and lows, the good coaching, the bad coaching, the good teammates, the bad teammates, the winning, the losing, all that stuff. So just so grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today, for sure.
Yes, man. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I think for some people who aren't really sports fans, and that's fine. Some people just aren't drawn to sports, but I think they're missing out on so much and not really understanding the massive impact that being on a team, being part of a team, the connection there, the bonds, the life lessons learned. I've been coaching my son's baseball for the last 6 years. Head coach and I've been assistant coach and different levels of baseball. And dude, I love it. I absolutely love it. I genuinely enjoy these boys. I've seen these boys progress. I've seen these boys from, hitting off a tee to playing on the big field. My son's 11, so he's not on a full-size Major League Baseball field, but he's in majors and he's on the bigger field. So 70-foot base path, 50-foot mound. What's that?
How home runs 200 feet, or what is it?
Yeah. Home runs are like 2 to 220. Yeah. So, but he's a baller and he just really loves it. And the boys that he plays with, they create these great friendships, but they learn about the winning and the losing and the struggles and coming back when all things look bleak and you have that one amazing half inning where you come back from a 10-point deficit or something, and there's so much to learn and to grow from in sports. And it's not that sports are more important than education, but I would say they're almost on a level playing field in terms of all the things that you learn. Listen, we're going to have classes in school that don't really apply to our lives very much when we graduate, right? We're not all going to become scientists or mathematicians or engineers or architects or any of these things, but we have to take these certain classes, right, and pass them and get good grades and get our diplomas and stuff. But the things that we learn in sports, the hard work it takes, the commitment it takes, the discipline, leadership, all these things, and then the relationships that you form between your players and your coaches. I'm sure those are some of the strongest friendships and bonds that you have are with guys that you played ball with in high school or college or beyond, and some of the not just head coaches but assistant coaches. I would say that you talk with some of these people probably on a daily, weekly, monthly basis because of your how much you grew together.
Well, just think about it, when through adversity, through a shared group experience, such as, let's just use something simple as, you form a new team and you have your preseason training that the guys have to go through. That's miserable. Everyone hates it. Yet when everyone gets through that and accomplishes that together, because it's brutal. When I was at the University of Florida, we did strongman training. And I tell you, my strength coach, Preston Green, one of the great men, he just lit up when the season was over or before the season started. He could just get after, because you can't, during the season, you can't train in the same way, same manner. But because we all went through that together, it was just something that we were able to bond through. And, education absolutely has a place, but education, a lot of times, especially in our school systems, are just memorizing, repetition, repeat versus, you think about baseball. We think about baseball because I play baseball is actually my first sport. That's the first time, your boys understand that, hey, if I hit and get on base 3 out of 10 times, I'm actually doing really well. That means I'm failing 70% of the time. And matter of fact, if I fail 70% of the time in the majors, that's Hall of Fame. Isn't that crazy?
You're the best of the best.
You're the best of the best. So, yeah, man, I wouldn't replace. I think, and I said this the other day, I think the world will be a better place if everyone just, not saying to a degree of the collegiate level or professional, but if everyone at some point in their life experienced team sports to learn sacrifice, to learn leadership, to learn what it means to work hard, to get playing time, to not get playing time, to have that authority figure over you, because people will go into their careers and their jobs and not be team players, not understand what it means to work hard, to sacrifice, to put other people before yourself, and they have all types of problems and won't take ownership. I think sports do a fantastic job of helping people take. For the most, I think the best teams that we hear stories of that make it to a historic level that we remember, they have a lot of players that take ownership, a complete ownership of everything that they do for the betterment of the team. And I guess you would say that's been a bit of my journey as well, because when we think about you read all those things that I accomplished, that I've been blessed enough to and fortunate to accomplish, I think always of the poster that has the glacier, where you see 10% of the glacier or the iceberg.
We have it in our hallway.
It's brilliant.
We have it in our hallway, yeah.
But then there's the 90% of all the things that you don't see. And I think about there's a seen success that is often times what people remember, but because that's what it is exposed, what's seen, what is written about in the Wikipedia. But no one talks about, because they're not there. They don't see the sacrifice, the tears, the blood, the failures, the things that led up to that 10% almost not being there at all. So fortunately, again, Coach Donovan at University of Florida, just other scenarios in my life helped me to look in the mirror, call me out, hold me accountable in love, speak truth, because they had a vision for me. Because they knew the man that I wanted to be. And when I wasn't in alignment with who I said I was, when there was this double life or a fraud-like persona out on the table, it wasn't a calling out of like, hey, man, there's something wrong with you. It's like, hey, man, you're called to a higher life, a higher being. And I know it's not easy. I know there's a lot of influences around you, but there's an audience of one. That's the most important audience, and that is God. That's the one that knows your heart, that knows you and has called you to be much more than the things of this world. So there's a lot to get into there, but man, I'm just so grateful for my journey and things, only looking at the other side of the adversity that I face. Because sometimes when we're in the middle of adversity, it's hard to see the end. And yeah, that's where we are right now.
It's awesome. No, it's a great transition because it's exactly where I was going with our conversation, because I wanted to know more about your connection as a young person, as a boy, your teen years. Who was it, or who were they, the people that were instrumental in you staying grounded, or were you always this rooted or this grounded kind of in, in your spiritual walk, or just kind of knowing who you are, or I mean, what was it? Your dad? Was it your coaches? Was it your mother? Were there siblings involved? Who was it that you were surrounded by from those early years that really had the greatest impact?
Gosh, when I think about my childhood, I just think of, first off, how much of a blessing it is, and my parents have been married for 36 years. 36 years my parents have been together. So that in and of itself, we don't have to get into statistics, but when a child is growing up in a single parent home, just the trajectory of their lives is completely tragically different. And I think that's a huge issue. I was listening to my pastor earlier today, and he's like, we don't need more churches. We just need more men being men. We need more men stepping up and prioritizing their families over, boys do what they want, men do what they should type thing. And growing up, I just remember, man, it was just such a great childhood, because I have a daughter now, and every day we didn't have a cell phone, didn't have any technology. I mean, we started getting into video games at some point with my friends in the neighborhood, but we're so present, man. You just go outside, and we're outside from sun up to sundown. My buddies, the pureness, the innocence of childhood at that point. My dad was fantastic. He was a huge instrumental part of my upbringing. But there were some areas, and I think oftentimes either it's from our parents, or and also in relationships that we have someday, romantic or even friendships, that our parents sometimes have gaps that weren't filled within them. And then also they have things that they did really well that we want to project on our partner in the future. But my dad had some gaps where he felt he didn't have that great connection with his dad when it came to support on his athletic endeavors. And it was mostly but his dad, I never got a chance to meet my dad's dad, my granddad, but understanding through my aunts and grandma, he was just a hardworking man that was doing what he could to support the family in the way that he knew. He did, but there were, again, some areas that my dad had missing. So my father, when he got married, he just had in his heart that I'm not going to repeat that cycle. I'm going to be a man that's going to support my kids 100% and be there with whatever I can do. And so grateful for that. So grateful for that. My sister played golf, softball. I played baseball growing up, and basketball. And my dad was obviously my primary coach. And then when his expertise became limited, he went on to getting me other coaches to help me out. We really thought baseball was going to be it for me, but I grew like 7 inches in one summer, and I finally started getting more coordinated and lined up that basketball was going to be the route for me. But my dad and mother we grew up going to church, and I think it was kind of one of those things where parents, and it's as parents, you're the lead disciple maker for your kids. You don't abdicate that role. Yes, you put them in the environment. Absolutely. All those things are necessary. But when it comes down to it, kids are going to catch more than what is taught. We grew up in church, and I felt almost at times that my dad was like, all right, just because I'm taking my kids to church, they'll pick it up and they'll get it, versus it's more important for me how I live it and how I am an example for them. And it's no criticism, because I don't think my dad had that at all. And he did try. He did. But for me, when I got to college, a little bit before that, I started getting good at basketball, started getting good at sports. I was a little bit of an awkward kid growing up. So I started getting this validation and approval and just praise from how I performed on the court. Praise from, and I had never really received that before. So my identity and value and it wasn't rooted in Christ. It was rooted in the things that I could do. Even though I knew Jesus, I knew of him, I knew of all these things that he had done for me, knew the stories of the Bible. When I started getting attention in a way I had never known before, I started leaning towards those things of the world. So when I got to college, I was first time you're in school away from your parents, as we know. You're away from your parents, get an opportunity to see what life is like and make your own decisions. As a student athlete, you now have scouting, weight training, class, all these things on top of it. Just a mess that, you're not really ready for handling. And I didn't handle it well. I was so caught up on being liked and fitting in versus having a vision, making a decision, having a vision and following through with that and being rooted in those things. So fortunately, I met a guy at the University of Florida that was involved in Athletes in Action. And when I saw his life, Athletes in Action is an amazing Christian organization that helps athletes grow into discover a relationship with Jesus, to understand what it's like. And as athletes, it's so hard to grasp the concept of faith in Jesus because it's a gift received freely. It's not, when you play a sport, you're so used to working your butt off to earn it. The more I'm in the gym, the more shots I get up, the more film I watch, the more XYZ I do, then I will get the validation. It's not that way at all. It's not a gift if you have to work for it. So when I developed a relationship with him in college, he helped me just by living his life. Didn't have to do anything drastic. I was like, my life looks nothing like his. And I say that I'm a Christian and he is a Christian. And I'm like, what do I need to do to change my life to look like that? And I still have a great relationship with him. That was a huge pivotal moment of my life of saying like, whatever I've been doing before was not it. And I wanted to be rooted more. And, it still wasn't perfect because it's about progress, not perfection. But that in college was a pivotal time for me to change and be more rooted in my faith versus just rooted in my performance.
Right. Well, and you said so many good things there. A few things I just want to highlight is the power of growing up in a two-parent home, a mom and a dad. Because we all know, any of us with children, how much work that is. Truly is very, very challenging, but super rewarding. But kids need their parents. They need both of their parents. And the parents need each other to support each. One parent has a bad day, the other one could pick them up, and vice versa. And it's a lot of work. But for kids to go to bed at night knowing that mommy and daddy are both there. And my wife and I are still in the stage, an 11-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter, where they still like being in bed with us, And,
oh man!
And as frustrating as it is, listen, my wife and I've had these conversations for years now, right? It's like, is our high school boy going to be in bed with us? It's like, well, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is like one day he's going to wake up and that's just not an option anymore. And I get that. But so we're at the stage where we've just accepted, you know what, just soak it up. Soak it up because one day when he does wake up and he's a 13-year-old and he's going through puberty and growing and liking girls and all that, all that stuff's happening. That time has passed now, right? Yeah. It's not an option anymore. So I'm just gonna soak it up. But it makes me feel good that my kids have a mom and a dad, and I know how powerful that is in terms of setting them up for success later in life, to feel loved and to feel supported and to feel heard and just
to be affirmed. I mean, especially for
it's so vital.
Boys need a woman can confirm, yeah, you're a man, but a man can affirm what it means to be a man to a boy. You need that. That it's not cool chasing at, treating women a certain way, less than what they're called to. It's not cool to, they follow what dad does. They follow what dad does. And without that example, the world is going to tell you what a man is. And we all see how good of a job the world is doing with that as of now.
Exactly, my man. It's exactly right. Right. We need every man to start stepping up and having conversations like this, talking about how important it is, what their role is, and they see the world burning down around and then they're wondering why. Well, they're running why because there's not kingdom men stepping up. I have my Tony Evans devotional here. You know who Tony Evans is, right?
I love Tony Evans.
Oh, who is it? If you're not a Tony Evans guy, you got to wake up.
His only flaw is he's a Cowboys fan. That's his only flaw.
That's his only flaw. Because that's a pretty big flaw. I know, but listen. I've been a big fan of his for years. I have a devotional that the cover is falling off of it. It's like the binding, but I read it when I read my Bible. And I read that, and there's one other devotional I read, and I love it. It's a 90-day devotional, so every 3 months I'm just going through the same thing. But it's funny how when you read things, and you know this, and anyone listening knows this, when you read something at a certain stage of your life, it means one thing to you. And when you're at a different stage of your life, those words take on new meaning. So you get you get a different reaction to it, or a different feeling about it, or something, right? And that's what makes being in the Word or a devotional like that so powerful, is because depending on where you are in your journey in life, it can have different meaning and different value for you. And I just think, and you being so vulnerable in the conversation I heard with Frank, and some things we're going to dive into, like the vulnerability and humility and stuff that strong men, very powerful men, what makes you more powerful and stronger is being vulnerable and being more humble, and being a better listener, and all these characteristics that sometimes kind of get pushed to the wayside when people think of leaders and strong men. The more vulnerable you are, I think, as a leader, or the more open and honest you are, the more potent you are.
Man, it's funny you say that. I think that is a huge issue in our politics now, that no one can be vulnerable and say, I made a mistake. It's like no one makes a mistake when it comes to politics. And I'm just like, the strength and power it takes to get up on stage in front of people, because we all make mistakes. No one's asking anyone in a position of power to be perfect. And the ones that are asking of that are delusional. But it took me a while to get to a place where I have been so comfortable talking about the things that I struggle with. But I just realized if you want real relationship, if you want closeness, if you want things to thrive, if you want a friendship to be more than just about fantasy football, more than just about sport, you have to be able to open up and let people know what's going on with you. And that's why, I actually joined a devotional group, a discipleship group. Is not out of fear or something's going wrong. It's out of hopefully help. These guys can see my blind spots. They know the struggles and things that I'm trying to work on as a man. Sometimes just being able to vent. And it's fun. My pastor, he said this the other day. He was like, man, you want to know why Joe Rogan is so famous? Because a lot of men don't talk to anybody else, and they consider Joe Rogan just to be their friend so they can talk about nothing for 3 hours. If guys had best friends where they actually just sat and talked, we wouldn't need somebody like that. And that's why I'm like, I want real friendships. Life is too short for people not to know what I'm going through and me not to know what they're going through. And those are the conversations that makes people sharper. Iron sharpens iron, right there.
Yep. No doubt, man. Absolutely. 100% true is we're at our best when we're in community and when we're in conversation. And you said the magic word, like other people can help you through your blind spots, things that you don't even see about yourself or even realize, things that you're doing or saying. And they can kind of they have their finger on the pulse of that. And they're like, listen, don't take this the wrong way, because I love you, and then, X, Y, Z. And when it means more, right? The better someone knows you, the more meaningful when they point something out about you that maybe needs fixing or needs correction or needs some focus, extra focus. And, we do that here in the building. I'm fortunate enough to, the founder of this company, A Critical Bench, has been a friend of mine for 32 years. We've known each other. And so theoretically, I kind of work for my best friend, which it's had its challenges in the past, but after 10 years, we've gotten through, I think, all those humps at this point but even just with other people that I work with, the connection, the closeness, we hold each other accountable to things. We talk about life together and family things. And this podcast obviously is very helpful in that regard. And I love that you're in a discipleship group. You're in a connect group, as they call it, at my church a lot. And gosh, if more people just would be in a connect group. I'm in one on Saturday mornings. I get with the same guys I've been getting with for years. And sometimes new guys are filtered into the group. And we do it virtually at 7 a.m. every Saturday morning. And sometimes I have to miss because of baseball, or I got to sleep in because I went to bed late or whatever. But sometimes I don't even set my alarm. And before I go to bed, and it's kind of late, and I'll say, you know what? I really need sleep, but I want to see my guys. So God, just wake me up in the morning. And I'll tell you, more times than I can count, I'll wake up at like 6:59, 7:01, like right. I mean, dude, it's the weirdest thing. And I'm a guy, I need to wake up to an alarm typically, during otherwise I'll sleep late or something.
Yeah.
But if I say that to myself before I go to bed, there's just something that happens, and God shakes me awake in the morning so I can get on that call. But there's so much power in that, and it's not like a one and done or I'll just do it for a few weeks. It's like the more you do it, the more you want to do it, because the better it makes you in life.
It absolutely does. I mean, if you ask the person, hey, would you prefer, instead of being on social media all the time, would you rather have a group of friends where they know you, they care for you, they pray for you? There's not a fear of temptation of falling off your goals or the vision that you have for yourself. You can have a community like this around you, accessible weekly. Would you prefer that? Because the social media life is not fulfilling. I mean, I do the best I can to only get on Twitter and Instagram when I'm up here for work, because I'm up here in Charlotte. 'Cause other than that, I'm like, it is such a waste. I'm on there. It never makes me feel better about myself. It never fills me up. But one conversation with one of my best buddies for about 30 minutes, and I am just fired up. I'm like, that's all I really need. I can go without the social media. Just let me stay connected with some men that love Jesus, love me, and I love them. And it's not always this conversation of us just trying philosophical. Sometimes we're just shooting the box, and just having a great old time. It's just good, clean fun. I don't have to worry about my wife approves of these friendships and relationships. And that's what the biggest thing now that I'm married. I want my wife to know, like, hey, Patrick's he's hanging out with Daniel. Oh, yeah, as long as you want, babe, take your time, type thing.
it feels good, right? When that trust factor in your marriage is huge in who you're associating with, and are those healthy relationships. I mean, your wife will know all this does is make my husband better.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's encouraged, and I get the same thing from my wife, about like, babe, I really don't want to miss church tomorrow, or maybe we have to do a Saturday night service because Sunday's kind of crazy with sports or something. I can't miss my men's call or whatever. She's never going to be like, oh, geez, like she knows I need it. I need to vent and I need to be around other men. And it is the iron sharpens iron mantra, which is obviously, just so powerful. For anyone listening, please find sometimes it just takes one person. Oftentimes it just takes one. That's where it starts. It starts with one person, and just connect with somebody who knows you, or who you want to know you better. And it's mentorship and it's discipleship, and that's what we're called to do, is to help each other. So, we haven't really touched on it at all, but I'd love to go down the road just a little bit, because this is an area of struggle for so many men listening, and just men and women, but I would say it's more of a men problem. And you talked about it for pretty extensively with Frank and stuff, but this is an area I struggled with for years, as did most men, like just even looking at stuff that we're probably not supposed to or not proud of, on the internet, on our phones, on a laptop, stuff that we would do late at night. And pornography it's not something I want for my 11-year-old son. I'll tell you that much. And we're right at the stage where he is begging us for a phone, right? We have pushed it off. He does not have his own phone yet. Because I know once you make that decision, right? If you got to do it right. And because I've even told him, I said, buddy, you can't unsee things.
Yeah.
Once you start plugging into certain things, there's just certain things you can't unsee, and it changes your world. And so that's what mommy and daddy we're trying to guard you against the world, because the world can be pretty ugly. It can be violent. It can be sexual. It can be a lot of things that didn't even exist when daddy was little, and I'm just trying to keep you a boy as long as I can, Right. So will you talk a little bit from your own perspective of some of those struggles and overcoming those very difficult struggles and challenges?
Gosh, Chris, it's a great pivot for sure to get on this category, because I look back on my life and think of the struggles that I faced, and I didn't even social media wasn't even around yet. When I first got exposed, I can only imagine. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she wants an iPad and all these things, and I'm just fearful of what, because it's like it's a tidal wave of over sexualization. Where is any dignity, any grain of clinging to innocence or prudence or just modesty? There's none. As soon as you open the internet, you turn the television on. But I just remember, when I think about my struggles and journeys, and I'm pretty sure you would probably say the same. One of my biggest regrets, or biggest, if I could go back and change anything, it would be any exposure to pornography ever in my life. I wish that would have never been a single part of my life, and could have held on to that innocence as long as possible. And because it affected my exposure to pornography, affected the way that I viewed women at a young age. And that only developed more as you get desensitized to what you're seeing, and you want to see more and more and more. And then realizing, going through that cycle of guilt, shame, and regret, it's a cycle that just continues going, because there's something deeper in there that we're looking for. We're looking for connection. What is sex? It was something that was created by God for men and women when they're married in that container of marriage to enjoy it to the fullest. But pornography is distorted that, and it has made it about just fulfilling your needs. It's not about the other person. It's not about this being a sacred thing for a person to wait for. And I just look back at my childhood upbringing. I think the first time I got exposed, I think was around middle school, and it wasn't even me seeing something first. It was me hearing other middle schoolers talking about pornography and about masturbation, which sparked something in my mind and my curiosity and got me going on the internet and on a family computer. And then eventually just when I had a television in my room, staying up, trying to watch what was coming on late night HBO and just living in secret, it's like there's so much shame, not that there is any condemnation for those in Jesus, but shame when you go back thinking about, man, that thing had such a grip on me that I was willing to do whatever. And it's like, we shouldn't be controlled by anything. And yet that was what pornography was for me. And I anyone listening, that mindset and thought of like, oh, one day I'll just get over it. I'll grow out of it. You don't grow out of an addiction. You have to break an addiction. You have to share this burden with somebody else. First off, number one, call it what it is. I didn't want to call it an addiction. I thought that, okay, I'm going to eventually it'll go away when I get married, when I get a girlfriend. And it's like, mine's still not in the right place because I shouldn't be sleeping around with a woman that is not my wife. And I would go through periods where I could stop using my willpower, where it wasn't a thing that bothered me that I was dealing with. And then other times where I didn't even care. And it's like I was battling this while being a Christian. And I say that with air quotes because nobody had any idea the struggles that I was dealing with. And that's not what we're called to do. We're not called to go do these things on our own. I wasn't, and it just so much regret around that, but there's also so much freedom in knowing that Jesus saw everything that I was going to commit before and still chose me and still forgave me. And when I came to accept and walk and have been able to walk away from that, even having hiccups along the way, I just know that he is not holding that against me. And that I can walk freely. And just, the huge catalyst was when I started dating my wife again. We've known each other for 11 years. This was what changed everything for me because I still, at 29 years old, was still on and off every now and then looking at pornography. And my fiance and I at the time, we're getting pretty serious. She wasn't my fiance, she was my girlfriend at the time, a now wife. She came to visit me in Jacksonville, and she said to me, she just asked me randomly because I had shared with her a while back that I had some struggles with pornography, and she was like, "If you're still struggling with pornography, or ever go to a strip club, I consider both of those things cheating, and we will not work out." Pretty much, just the way that she said it, because we were having a really good night, we were just hanging out. We went to like this karaoke. Or bingo rock and roll spot downtown Jacksonville, and then all of a sudden she said that, and my mind went, holy crap, I don't want to lose this woman that I love. I have to get this nipped in the bud right now. And then I ended up, not sure if you know Sathya Sam, that's who Frank knows pretty well, that deals with a program called Deep Clean. And I put my money where my mouth was and went through a huge program to help me discover so much about myself, learning about what addiction is, journaling, self-awareness. And that is pretty much what helped me get to freedom.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's great testimony. I love that you said that you don't grow out of an addiction. You have to break an addiction. And that goes for any kind of addiction. It's not just something one day you're magically just going to grow out of. Oh, that's behind me now. I've now leveled up. It's like, no, it's a concerted effort that takes a lot of your your time, your energy, and support, and education. There's so much that we need to learn about why we find something so appealing to the level where it has complete control or dominance over us, right? Power over us. And I definitely, I think I had made a commitment. I forget if it's been 5 years. I'm not counting the years, but there was a point where I think it was some point in August or September several years ago where I just was, it's almost like I just got to the point where after you look at pornography and you get past your 2 minutes of taking care of business, let's say, did you ever once, I was asking myself, did I ever once feel good about what I just did? That kind of thing. And if it's something that you never, ever, not one time feel so good crazy about, yeah, then why are you continue to do it? So, and people will say, well, it doesn't hurt anybody. Yeah, it does. It hurts you. It hurts the person doing it because it's not normal it's not normal because there is no connection to somebody that your brain is trying to form a connection with, and it's not a normal type thing. And I got to the point where I was just sickened by it and kind of disgusted with myself. And I just made a commitment to myself. I'm sure I prayed about it. I'm sure I had some vertical conversation, and for, just seeking for strength and not wanting to do it anymore. And luckily, I haven't gone backwards in that thing. Now, not to say that I'm on Instagram too. I see stuff on Instagram that I'm like, oh my gosh. And as a man, it's hard to look away from stuff when you're scrolling or and you're like, gee whiz. And so you find out I got to stop following some of this stuff because I can't. I can't, because what it does is it's an entry point, right? It's an entry point. You see one image and then you see a second image.
Or a trigger.
And then it takes you down this. Yeah, it's a trigger.
No, you're dead on. Yeah, you're dead on. Yeah.
So I think it's just coming to terms and getting to the point where, when you have an awareness about something, and then you gotta, whether our listeners have faith or strong faith or not, it takes more than just you to break those shackles and to break free of an addiction. It takes support of a spouse, of a friend, of a mentor, of somebody that you trust, and somebody that can help hold you accountable. It's and absolutely, you and I know it takes prayer and it takes faith in God's almighty power to be able to distance ourselves from those bad decisions.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people, faith or not, it doesn't matter, because this thing will attack anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, but there's a fear of being found out, right? There's a fear of getting caught and destroying a relationship or whatever that thing may be. Let me tell you, there's so much. Well, one exercise that I remember going through with Sathia, he had me visualize the worst case scenario of me taking the step. Instead of my wife finding out, how about I tell her what I've been struggling with? And the worst case scenario, you go through the worst case scenario that could happen. But and it's a scenario that wouldn't happen. She responded in love when I did end up talking to her about that. But I'll tell you what, keeping it within yourself, and it is, I don't know anyone that's defeated pornography addiction by themselves. And the first step is, again, that's, like I said, naming it an addiction and then telling somebody. Yes, it is hard. Somebody knows something that you've been struggling with now, but guess what? They're in the battle with you. They're in the ring with you now to help you through it, and can, whatever those next steps may be, to help you better yourself. Because having freedom from I just think of all the time wasted all the emotional waste as well through all of it, of just just looking at myself and just thinking like, man, how could I do that? How could I do this and that? And there's just so many layers to it. I just wish I would have found Deep Clean or whatever system to help me get free so much sooner in life.
Yep. Man, that's a great point too. The time. I used to call it the 30-minute rabbit hole of wasted time. 30 minutes of just stupid. Oh, I'll go to this one. Oh, now I'll go to this one. Oh, this one looks good. I'll go to this one. And you just keep going and you keep going deeper and deeper. And it's like 30 minutes. I could have read a chapter in a book. I could have bettered my life. I could have worked out. I could have prayed. I could have gotten more sleep. I could have got right. So,
that's a good one.
Man, it's so good. It's so good. So we haven't even gotten. So your world changed quite a bit, a little under a year ago, but that didn't slow you down. It changed things, but it doesn't seem to slow you down at all. But will you tell our listeners a little bit about what happened? Obviously, but what has come from it?
Yeah. So after basketball season was over, well, I proposed to my girlfriend at the time, became my fiance in December, and we had our wedding date planned for July 9th of 2022. She said yes, obviously. And basketball season was still going on. I was still working and living in Jacksonville. She was up in Nebraska, her and our daughter, her stepdaughter. So we were kind of doing long distance for a bit as we're preparing for our wedding. And season ends, and I go up to Nebraska where it's freezing. Go up to Nebraska after the season's over, and I say, I want to stay up there and just cultivate relationship with her family and my to-be daughter as we're preparing for marriage. And it was a great time up there. Played a lot of golf, but there's not a lot to do in Nebraska. So at one point, I started working for an irrigation company. And just getting my hands dirty, getting up early in the morning, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the people I was working with and putting together these huge pivots. And was doing it for about 2 weeks. And it was just any other casual day. But on this day, on the dirt road, I just lost control of my vehicle, ended up going through a stop sign, and vehicle flipped over. I was the only one. No one else was involved, and ended up breaking my back, fracturing my T7 and T8, and having a spinal cord injury. Ended up having to get emergency surgery, airlifted from Nebraska to South Dakota. Had to get an 8.5-hour surgery to get 2 rods and 12 screws put in my back. And man, just life completely flipped upside down. Being told that rehabilitation is very unlikely. And, all the hospitals that I ended up going to at that point, they just prepare you for life being in a wheelchair. And I just knew in my mind that if this is the circumstance that I'm going to be in, God, I believe in my heart that God doesn't waste pain, that he hasn't said, oops, what am I going to do now? Yes, it's unideal. Yes, I wouldn't have asked for this platform. Yes, all those things that I struggled emotionally. I have my doubts and fears and you name it. Anything that someone's hearing that can project how they will respond to the situation, I felt all of those things. I cried. I'm sad. Why did this happen to me? And yet, because I had such a strong foundation of my family and a strong faith in believing that God is still in control, I said, you know what? I'm going to put God to the test. And not a way of like testing if God is there, but testing that he is good, because I know he's good and I know he has a plan for my life and I know he's not wasting this. And I've been put in a position where I need to be 100% dependent upon God. And that's a place where we all honestly should be. But mine was just a little bit more immediate than others, I guess you would say, with realizing that. But in that time, I said, let me stop thinking about myself and thinking about how, because I'm the number one person that's affected, obviously, and number two is my wife. How can I still be a good husband to her? How can I still be a good dad? How can I still show up in spite of my circumstances and being something I don't want to be in? Nothing is taking away my choice of how I live my life, that I can still be strong, Strong is a relative word. It is a word that people only think it deals with muscles, but it's funny because I've always been known as this strong, big figure, and it's almost as though God said, "All right, I'm going to take that away from you. Who are you now? Who are you when I take away what you see yourself as and what other people see you as? Do you really believe in who I say that you are?" And yeah, it inspired me to start a foundation. It inspired me to just live life to the fullest. It's inspired me to just try to be better, to just keep promoting this message of not allowing your circumstances to dictate how you live your life, how you show up daily. So yeah, that's been it in the gist. And it hasn't been easy. Gratitude is not. I'm willing to say gratitude is never the easy choice. Gratitude is a choice to say, in spite of the circumstances, I'm putting my lenses and focusing on those things that I do have to be thankful for. So that's what I've chosen. Those are the things that have carried me, my amazing wife, my amazing family, my amazing daughter, my amazing physical therapist that have helped me hit breakthroughs already. So I'm not worried. I just wish things would hurry up.
That's right.
Of course. But I'm just taking everything one day at a time. And literally, I am trusting God and not focusing on, I'm not waiting for my circumstances to change to be happy and choosing joy in this moment, in this day.
It's great. We do a daily meeting here called a huddle. It's a very quick. We have our big Monday meetings as a team, all of us together. It's an extended meeting, but then we do these little 5-minute get-togethers where we all just kind of go over key parts of our role here and where we are in the process of something, of a project or whatever. And my lesson, we share victories and we share lessons before we share key performance indicators like numbers and stuff. Yes. Yep. My lesson today was focus on the process and enjoy the journey.
Yep.
Live in gratitude for what you have and what you've been given. And I think if more people lived in gratitude on a regular basis, and you got to fight for that, man. Like you said, it doesn't just come naturally. Right?
That's what you got to be gratitude.
Yep. That's right. They call it practice gratitude for a reason, because none of us are perfect at it. And you got to be really diligent and mindful. And I'll tell you, most times when I get down on my knees and I'm praying, my prayers begin with gratitude for my many blessings in my life. I mean, if you think about it, all the different opportunities you've had and the people you've been around and learned from, how grateful are you for all those experiences and those people and those memories? And so I'm always looking up and I'm like, I'm not worthy of all this. I don't deserve all of this. But I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much. And for my family and my children, for my brothers and my coworkers and what I get to do for a living. I mean, I'm so blessed. And gosh, it leaves you feeling like you fall in love with your life.
Yes.
And I think if more people really loved their life and felt purpose in this life, that would change this world. That's
so good. That's so good. Yeah, I've been just striving to combat any level of entitlement that I deserve, I should have, and just saying, oh my gosh, I've had such a great life, and I have a great life. And yeah, everybody could nitpick and say they want things to be different. But how about just saying thank you for what you have? Because things could be different on a worse spectrum. I mean, look at the people in Syria and Turkey that were just going to sleep. And I think over 30,000 people passed away from those two earthquakes.
Right? It boggles the mind to even think about stuff like that. How fortunate we are. You're one breath away or one day away from something you don't even see coming. And so be grateful. Did I hear on the episode with Frank? I think I did. Where are you in your recovery? Are you getting some? So are you getting some movement?
Yeah. So great question. I just started getting to the pool about 2 weeks ago. So I go to physical therapy since I'm in the season right now. It would be 5 days a week, but I'm going 4 days a week just because on Wednesdays impossible. I'm in Charlotte. So I do this thing called Cyberdyne. I've had a video I think I posted on social media before where it's like this robot thing that connects to my legs. And if I didn't have signals going down my legs below my injury, I wouldn't be able to use this, which is a huge sign, that the signals are weak, but their signals are there. The more that you work them, the more that they'll get stronger and start to relearn what they used to do. But also I've started getting in the pool. And the pool is the best place ever because there's so much you can do in the pool that you can't do out of the pool. Any movements that you have that you can do in the pool, you see them so exaggerated, I guess you would say. Like I can raise my legs, do a hip flexor, using my hip flexors, make my legs go side to side. It's just only the beginning. I've only been doing the pool for about 2 weeks now. And I'm going to continue to work. I believe faith without works is dead. I'm going to continue to work until God says no. But yeah, the things that I've been able to do as thus far are things that 8 months ago, the surgeon didn't think I would be able to, or even at the hospital after with my category of injury. So we're just going to keep going, keep believing, and choosing joy in the midst of it. That in the midst of things being hard, in the middle of it, just keep working, just keep moving forward.
It's awesome. It's great. It does. It's what faith without works is dead, right?
Yep.
We have a role to play, and we need to be men of action, people of action, men and women of action, and we're blessed every day, like we said just a moment ago, to wake up and GSD, as we say around here, get stuff done is the clean version of that. And so that's wonderful, man. That's great news. I'm so encouraged to hear that. And I know I'll have to follow your journey here in the coming weeks and months and to see your progression and stuff. So that's exciting.
Keep going.
And I'm sure your wife is excited too.
Yeah,
at that idea.
Well, she's excited that now I'm driving. So gosh, she sacrificed so much, and so thankful and grateful for my wife. And now that I can drive, I'm the primary driver of the household again, which I'm happy to be. I'm very happy to be because the last 7 months she's been doing all of that. So yeah, just such a blessing to have her.
Where can our listeners go, Patric, to learn more about your foundation, number one, and number two, just to follow you on whatever platform you prefer?
Yeah, working on my own personal website. I'll have that up and going next month. But for the foundation, it's PY4 foundation.org. Right now, we're applying to get our fiscal sponsorship because our 501 status is pending. But the purpose of the foundation is to help those affected by life-altering injuries by providing life-changing resources. So we're striving to help as many people as we can with those little things, with those big things, and going to do it on an annual basis. Our next event that I got a call later on planning an event around my accident date, June 29th, to do something very special there. And for my own personal social media stuff is Patric Young, and the number 4, and that's Patric without a K, PATRICYOUNG, number 4. And that's primarily I just use Instagram and Twitter. That's it. But yeah, you can catch me there.
That's great, man. And so you're loving your connection here to SEC sports. You get to now. That's why you're up where you are, right? Because of the work that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
And it's so cool, man. I've been just in this time. I was fearful that would I be able to do the job, and they were so gracious and saying, "No, we want you. Do you want to do it? Absolutely, I want to show up." And be my just willingness to show up and posting my journey I'm not a person that likes to show myself off, but I realized in the midst of this, I'm trying to inspire people. The other day, head coach Buzz Williams of Texas A&M, we were interviewing him after their win. He just stops our interview and just praises me for everything that I've been doing and going through in my journey on national television. And it was just awesome. So I just hope that he's like, you have no idea how many people you're affecting by just how you're showing up every day. And I was like, Coach, it's all I need to hear to keep going. And that's why I'm here now. That's what I'm going to keep doing every day. That's
awesome. Terrific. Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad he took a moment to do that for you. It shows you his heart. So that's pretty great. Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for making this time, Patric. Just a week ago, we didn't even know each other, and I felt like I got to know you quite a bit in an hour and share your walk with our listeners. And I know there's so many great takeaways, and we helped somebody today. We helped probably many people today with this conversation, and maybe this is the tipping point for them in their life to make a change, to step into uncharted waters, to be held accountable, to be more encouraged to seek community with other people, and to overcome a struggle or an addiction of some kind. So it's just wonderful. Again, just so much gratitude for you. And, I look forward to following your story as it just continues to get better and better. So, listeners, I promised another great conversation, and sure enough, we did it again here on Strong by Design. Please, hopefully you've thought of somebody you could share this conversation with that could help them in their life as it has impacted me and helped me in my life. Every conversation I have makes me a better man. So I hope it helps you. We thank you so much. We love you here at Strong by Design. Join us next week on Wednesday, as always, when a new episode drops. We'll talk with you then. God bless you.